Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. We're here today to do a container garden tour. So as you can see, we're up on my deck. Now, I will warn you guys that the season is kind of winding down. A lot of the plants are looking a little worse for the wear. While there is still a lot of harvest to come, there are a lot of plants that are pretty much done now. So you'll see, especially a lot of my tomatoes on the deck are really diseased, not really yielding anymore. And I'm just gonna say, I did not clean up for you guys. So what you see is exactly how it is. I know I have some tomatoes that are not going to make the best impression. I know that this is really not going to be the most beautiful garden tour. But that's the reality of the garden, or at least I should say that's the reality of my garden at the end of August into early September. I'm actually filming this at the very end of August, but I think it'll probably be early September when you see this. So this is, again, a real life garden. I'll show you what's doing really well, what I'm still planning to get a good harvest from, and what things I think are kind of on the way out. Now, I will say, while my tomatoes are kind of on the way out, my peppers are still going pretty strong. So I have here, this is a Corno de Toro pepper. I believe this is the red variety. And you can see it's got a handful, I don't know if you can even see them all. It's got a handful of peppers in various stages of development. So I'm really looking forward to harvesting those when they finally turn red. Those are supposed to be a really good bell pepper substitute. And here we have some chickens that decided to get in on the container garden tour. These guys are not normally part of my container garden. I don't know if you can even see. You can see some feet over there. There's another imposter and another one. So through here, I've got a couple shishito peppers in this pot. We have harvested quite a few harvests of these. I've got some that are starting to turn red there. We have harvested quite a few peppers from these plants here, but you can see they are still producing and going strong. I find that shishitos are really dependable with producing a good yield. So if you've been following along with me this garden season, you know that one of my goals this garden season was to grow more sweet peppers that are not bell peppers. While I love bell peppers, they generally don't yield that, they aren't really that high yielding for me. So I wanted to try out some alternatives this year, and the Corno de Toros are one that I've been trying. Now, shishitos I have grown in the past. Those are kind of different than a bell pepper. I don't think it's really a bell pepper alternative, but I find that the variety of pepper that you grow can make a really big difference when it comes to yield, and I have been really happy with those shishitos. Now you'll see that I have lots of basil on this deck. This one is growing happily in with my shishito peppers. And backing up a little bit, I've got a couple more varieties of basil here, plus some rosemary. Herbs tend to be really container friendly. If you're limited on space and you're looking for great plants to grow in containers, herbs are a great place to start because they provide a lot of yield in a small space. And herbs can be really rewarding to grow. I find that they are, for the most part, pretty easy to grow, so that is a great thing to get started with. Now through here, you can see my cherry tomatoes are still yielding, but they're really on the way out. Those plants don't look healthy at all. At the moment, I don't have any plans for this space, so I'm just going to let these tomatoes continue growing as long as they'll yield something for me. Now back here, I've got a big variety of other types of peppers and also some basils, as you can see, and another tomato that's really pretty much dead at this point. I need to pull that out. So in the back here, I've got a coral bell pepper, which honestly, I don't think that has really done anything. Here I've got a sugar rush peach, which has yielded a couple peppers for me, and you can see this one is kind of wandering over to another pot. I've got one that's ripe and a couple other little ones that aren't quite ripe yet. So I've mostly, so far, just been adding that to salsa to spice it up a little bit. If you have other suggestions, I'm definitely open to hearing them. And here I've got a bell pepper, which I think this started off as a bug bite. Sometimes they'll nibble on your peppers and then that spot will start to rot, which is unfortunate. Even though it's tiny, it looks like it was just starting to ripen. These are more sugar rush peach, I think. This plant is really sprawling. So there's actually quite a few more sugar rush peach peppers than I had actually thought. In the back there, you can see I've got some beans that are, I actually thought they were on the way out, but they seem to be putting off a flush of new growth. And over here, I've got a lunchbox pepper. Not actually sure what color these are going to ripen. Oh, you know what? I see one at the bottom. Look at that. See that down there? It looks like this is a yellow lunchbox pepper, so that's really exciting. So I was growing those lunchbox peppers for a couple of reasons. One is that it's a really fun, delicious snacking pepper. You know, I got the variety seed packet, which means that in my seed packet there are a mix of seeds for red, orange, and yellow peppers. And since they weren't separated out, I have to wait for those to ripen and see what they are. So I'm excited to see that that one is yellow. Now, another reason that I was growing those is because one of the things I really like to do with peppers in the summer is I'll take jalapenos and, you know, I think I'll probably actually make a real quick video of this soon because it's something really easy and delicious. But I'll take the jalapenos and basically make stuffed bacon wrapped jalapenos with them. But I like to have an alternative that's a little bit sweeter and less spicy for those who don't really want the heat from a jalapeno. And I find the lunchbox peppers are perfect for that. So I think I'm going to make those in the next couple days, and I'll try to make a video. It's really easy, but I'll just make a quick video just showing you guys what we like to do with our peppers. And speaking of jalapenos, here is the jalapeno jungle. I've got a lot of weeds growing up in here. But as you can see, there's lots of jalapenos mixed in here also, ready to harvest. And some nice basil plants. Over here I've got another nice basil. And here is my holy basil. If you remember, not that long ago we came out and harvested this together, and it has regrown nicely. So I should be able to get at least one more harvest off this before fall. Here I've got a few more beans. These beans are pink, and I'm just letting them go. I think I'm going to try to save the seeds from these because these are... Actually, some of these look new. I think they put off some new beans. I'll have to take a look at these. But a lot of these are really, I mean, you can see that's going to be too tough to eat. So at this point, I'm just going to let it mature and save for seeds. Then here's another basil. As you can see, this is a mammoth basil, also sometimes called a lettuce leaf basil. All right, so I'll skip the tomato plants that are basically dead. We'll focus a little more on peppers, which is a little bit of a happier story here. This pepper here is called the Lesia pepper. These are supposed to ripen to red and be really, really deliciously sweet. I'm really excited to try those. I have heard that that pepper is supposed to be really sweet and delicious. I actually have another plant of that variety growing out in my in-ground garden, and it did produce a full-size pepper that ripened. I was so excited to try it, and then when I grabbed it and brought it into the house, I realized that a bug had eaten it. And from or a bug had bitten into it, and from that spot, it was rotting. So it wasn't good anymore, which means I didn't get to try it. But the plants up here have had to deal with a lot less bug damage. So I'm thinking that those peppers, while they're a little bit behind, they should ripen hopefully pretty soon, and I would think pretty much definitely before frost. So I will get to try it eventually. And here, I know I really have a lot of weeding to do, which honestly I'm probably just not going to get to at this point. But I've got a trio of basils in this pot here, 3 different varieties. And my hope was that I would be able to keep these going well enough to bring these inside for the winter. So we'll see what happens with those. And then here is a corbaci pepper. This one appears to be really prolific. And there's a pepper down here that looks like it's almost ripe. I'm not going to mess with it too much because I don't want to accidentally detach it from the plant before it's ripe. But there you can see that one's almost ripe. And this plant looks like it's producing a lot of peppers. And here I've got a bell pepper. This is King of the North. Now you could harvest these peppers at any size, and you could definitely harvest them green. I'm hoping to wait for at least some of them to turn red because I greatly prefer the flavor of ripe bell peppers. Now most bell peppers, even if they are marketed as green bell peppers, if you let them ripen on the plant long enough, they will usually turn red. Now, of course, sometimes there are other colors too. There's yellow, orange, purple, brown. I mean, you can get them in pretty much any color you can imagine. But for the most part, I prefer the flavor of the ripe bell peppers. It is a little bit of a trade-off because by letting them ripen on the plant, it takes longer. It takes more of the plant's energy, and then that plant isn't going to produce quite as many peppers for me. But I find that, for me anyway, it's worth it to get the flavor that I'm really going for. So over here, I've got more jalapeno plants. You can see quite a few peppers on these plants through here. Now this is the Craig's Grande variety. I find that these are spicier than the other jalapenos I showed you before. Those were early jalapeno, and those are very mild. These have a little more kick to them, although I find that in my area, jalapenos are not always reliably spicy anyway. In this big pot here, I have 3 cherry tomato plants that are sprawling. They're honestly kind of on the way out, but they're still producing a little bit, so we're going to let them go as long as they produce for us. And here is another Corno de Toro plant. This one is the yellow variety, so these should ripen to yellow. And you can see what I meant about these being more prolific than bell peppers. You can see it's already got at least 6. They're not all quite harvestable size yet. A couple of the big ones I could probably harvest. Some of them are on the small side. But it's already got 6 respectable sized peppers, and it's still flowering to try to produce more. So I'm hoping that we will get a good harvest from that overall. And finally, here's my habanada plant. Looks like some of the peppers. Now this one here you can see is mostly ripe, but it looks like something nibbled on the tip of it. So I may harvest this and cut off the tip and try to salvage what I can of the rest of it. I would love to hear, if you've grown habanada peppers, I would love to hear what you do with them. I just kind of grew them because they seemed fun, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with them. So for the most part, I try to grow mostly plants that I have a specific use for, something that I know I use a lot. But sometimes it's fun just to try something a little bit different. As I said, this habanada is kind of a novelty pepper, so I'm not sure if I'll use it just for snacking or what I would use it for. I know that a lot of people use it if they want to make a hot sauce using habanero peppers, and they want more of that habanero flavor, but they want to tone down the heat a little bit. So something like that does seem like a great use for them. I am honestly probably not going to make hot sauce, at least not this year. So I'm not sure if we'll just use them for snacking. As I said, I'm open to suggestions. In fact, any of the peppers that I have showed you guys on my deck, I would love to hear how you use them. The Corno de Toros, I plan to basically just use like bell peppers, but some of those other peppers, like the Corbaci pepper, I haven't grown before either. So I would just love to hear your favorite recipes using any of those peppers. The shishito peppers that I mentioned, I do usually just blister those. I just cook them in a hot pan and then make basically a garlic aioli to dip them in. They're really delicious that way. But if you have other recipes, I am definitely open to hearing other suggestions with those as well. So that is my short and hopefully sweet container garden tour. As you can see, at the end of the season, there isn't quite as much to show. Things are looking a little bit battle weary, I think, at this point. You know, the plants have had to overcome a lot this season, and I think that they deserve a little bit of a rest. But that being said, my peppers are still really going strong. So while the tomatoes are definitely slowing down, the peppers are really just kind of getting going as far as harvest and production goes. So even though my deck garden or my container garden is not anywhere near as pretty as it was this spring and early summer, it is still doing really well, and I am still excited for the harvest that I'm going to get from it. So thank you guys so much for joining me and hanging out my deck with me today. I would love to hear what kind of plants you like to grow in a container garden. As you could probably tell, peppers are my favorite, followed by herbs and tomatoes. That's the majority of what I have growing up here. But if you have really good success growing something else in containers, I would love to hear that too. So I hope you guys are having a great day. I can't wait to see you soon. I'll see you next time.